everyone. I should mute. Okay. It's better that I stay mute.
הרמקול שלך פתוח? שלי פתוח.
את לא דרך אגב.
שלי סגור.
סגור? לא, לפעמים יש פה את השנייה של העץ, סגרתם את זה.
הנגיעות וגם זה. סגור.
פה הסטים, פה. So you're getting me through the system now?
Are you on mute?
Yep, I'm on mute.
Perhaps one of these.
Are you on?
What's this one?
It's yeah, it is. It's muted. Yep. It's muted. And this one? Yourself. And you also know. It sounds like. Oh, so maybe someone outside. The projector.
The big brother. כן, אבל מקליטים.
Yeah, we have made a decision. We're going to
It's
speak
okay.
English. Okay. So I'm going to try again to introduce the session. It's not working.
There's an echo.
There's an echo somewhere. Ah, it's this one.
Yeah, now I opened. It has to be on all the time?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So yours is on. Would you like to say something so that it works?
Yeah, did you hear me? Yeah.
Good. Are you hearing me okay? And
Of course.
you should put it on and just check that it works, okay? And I'm assuming everybody here can hear me.
Okay. Now?
And then,
Perfect.
okay, good, excellent.
Thank you.
Right. Welcome to our session. My name is Jan. I'm the room chair. My job is to make sure that everybody feels comfortable. So I see you have brought drinks with you. I actually have some drinks here for the people presenting so that you feel comfortable. We have exactly until 5:30, I believe. And one of the disadvantages of having me as the room chair is that I'm very strict with time. So we're going to have two presentations, one after the other. And then after that, we will open for a discussion. Is that okay for everybody, for the program? We have, at the moment, it looks like we have 6 participants who are not here. So I know that, we should always be in the here and now and full of mindfulness, but we also in this session have to be there and now, because there are 6 other people somewhere else on the planet who are joining us for this. So we have to be aware that they are here. And you are the Zoom chair, is that correct? So when we come to the discussion, we will have to work together to make sure they also get a chance to say something. Okay, is that everybody's fine with that? Now, I haven't even had a chance to discuss the program with our star-studded cast. If it's okay with everybody, I would ask Lilach to start. Is that okay with you? Okay.
With presentation, introducing themselves,
And
or the lecture?
I would just like to say that I have just met Lilach, and she lives in a community in Israel which is very big but very unideological, called Ramat Gan. So she has very good perspectives on community from both the large and the small. Seeing as we haven't met formally for a few minutes ago, I would ask you to introduce yourself.
Well, thank you. So just a small correction. I grew up in Ramat Gan, and Ramat Gan was the ideological background of my growing up. But now I'm living in Shoham, in the middle between Tel Aviv and Jerusalem, and we have their very rich communal life, even though we are not a kibbutz. I'm an associate professor and the chair of the Department of Land of Israel Studies and Archaeology at Bar-Ilan University, and I'm a historian specialized in social history of Israel and the Yishuv and Mandat Palestine, and my research focuses on history of women, gender, and family, various issues such as settlements, especially the kibbutzim, identity, leadership, marriage, motherhood, birth rate, national society, and the combination between tradition and modernization. So here in my lecture, I will go back to my PhD dissertation when I studied women and gender in religious Zionism. And a big part of this dissertation was focused on the kibbutz. So I really thank you for this opportunity to present something from my doctoral thesis with update.
Okay, is sound okay? Okay.
That's it.
Okay.
And I'm a mother to 4 children, and motherhood, not just the kibbutz is the ideological challenges, also motherhood and
Okay.
career. That's it.
So you have 25 minutes.
Oh, okay. I'll begin with my lecture.
And I will give you a 5-minute warning
Okay.
and a 2-minute warning.
Okay.
And
No
then we
problem.
start. Okay.
Okay. Yes. Yes, since no, it changed. Maybe Paz will start as it was written in the program. Paz is the first one.
I'm happy with anything. My aim is to get you guys happy. So
No, I'm very
that
happy either way. Yeah, it's
Okay.
there. So Paz,
okay.
sorry.
Thank you for your.
And if you'll forget, I'll I'll say again, I'll introduce myself again. So, well, I don't know what's going on with
You
the
are
children.
unforgettable. It's okay. Paz, Paz, we've known each other actually for a few years because the ICSA has a very strong relationship with several institutions in Israel, which I see some of them represented here. And we've been meeting regularly for years to make sure that there is a good link between us. So it's really great to have you here, this conference.
Thank you so much.
And you are going to talk about kibbutz festivals. Well, that's great. Okay, roll on the chagim.
Yeah.
Bakasha.
Okay, so you can put it back now.
Okay.
Okay.
It is
It's still there.
It's still there.
First of all, I'll tell some details about me. I present
Please.
myself.
Please.
Okay. So now I'm the director of Yad Tabenkin Institute. I came from Oranim College of Education, from the education field. I was in Oranim. I was the director of elementary school teacher education department. And I'm living in Ramat Yochanan, which is a still cooperative kibbutz in the old style. And I lead there in the kibbutz the holidays. The holidays, I mean, in Israel we have many holidays. I mean the traditional kibbutz holidays. And I'm going to talk about it right now. So I'll start. Okay, but can you hear me in the Zoom? Can you? Okay. So hello, everybody at home. We're happy you join us. Okay, the study, just let me check that it works. Let's see that it works. Okay, yeah. How can I take it? Okay. The study provides a perspective on the cultural historical role of fostering agricultural festivals in rural communities in Israel and the revitalization of the Jewish calendar holidays in connection to historical, educational, social, and cultural context. Its main goals are to shed light on how the Kibbutz Festival Institute, the Folklore and Festival Institute at Kibbutz Ramat Yochanan, and the Institute of Kibbutz Festival, which later called Shittim Institute, at Kibbutz Bet Hashita, how they contributed to the renewed Jewish kibbutz culture and to the involvement of the Kibbutz Festival and the holidays. Oh, okay. I would like to focus in this talk on the role of the institutes for understanding the connection between kibbutz culture and community. First, I should note that the kibbutz was established as a collective community that emphasized the egalitarian relations between its members, and it is based on a shared cultural ideological components. Israel currently has a united kibbutz movement, including 270 communities. In the past, there were 3 movements, הקיבוץ המאוחד, איחוד הקבוצות והקיבוצים, and הקיבוץ הארצי. There is another separate movement, the religious kibbutz movement, which is out of this present study. Across all of the movements, from a community perspective, the challenge was to build a strong community to face the difficult challenges of reality. The lecture will focus on 3 points. First, who led the process of developing and realizing kibbutz culture? Second, the concept of the culture in the community. Third, what does culture contributed to the kibbutz community? Two individuals led the cultural institution in the kibbutz. The first one was the poet, composer, educator, and philosopher Matityahu Shelem, who founded the Folklore and Festival Institute at Ramat Yochanan in 1954. Sorry. Just 6 years after the State of Israel was founded, and while its own systems were being put into place. Matityahu Shelem was one of the main designers of the kibbutz agricultural festivals. He also wrote theory defining the principles and characteristics of the kibbutz, holiday ceremonies, and the holiday ceremonies designed by Matityahu Shelem for his own kibbutz, Ramat Yochanan, were adapted by many other Israeli communities and have become part of general Israeli folklore. The other person was Aryeh Ben Gurion, the cousin of the Israeli first Prime Minister, David Ben Gurion, and the founder of Kibbutz Bet Hashita. He too was an educator devoted to mission of imparting Jewish culture within a secular framework. In 1968, he created the Institute of Kibbutz Festivals, Shittim Institute. What they both had in common was that they were both educators whose life mission was to develop and spread culture. They both understood that culture has capacity to cement a community together and that diffused culture should be gathered into kibbutz culture. That would address the unique characteristics of the kibbutz community and create a community of communities. Both of them acted as mediators between the creators and customers of culture, culture coordinators, educators, kibbutz movements, state bodies, and more. They shared a concept of culture, of community, and of culture in the community. The study emphasizes the symbiotic and dynamic relationship between the festival and kibbutz community and their mutual and influence. The Kibbutz Festival is based, that's what they said. The Kibbutz Festival is based on community. It is primarily a social product and plays a social function. Therefore, Kibbutz cannot be without a festival, if only for the social reason, said Shelem in 1970. The community constitutes the celebrating and cultivating realm, while the created festival in its diverse manifestations and ability to tell the story. We've revitalized and bind it together. The performing participants represent the collective of which they are part. They are carriers and of the message without self-interest. The collective is the subject of the festival. Shelem said it in 1955. A successful festival is not only a shared experience of the team, but also the source of renewed strength and faith for the kibbutz, that Aryeh Ben-Gurion said, so that there is a mutual relationship between culture and community, and it affects the cohesion and strength of the community. They said, I still believe that even today, the festival is the roof that united the entire community. Despite the process of age based on other divisions that have increased on our kibbutz, the festival must maintain an extra value. The mutual relationship between culture and community is so necessary that Shelem argued the creation of a festival can impact the future survival of the community. Take the festival events away from the kibbutz throughout the year, and you have taken away its soul. This was well put by Udi Peled in 1915, community director at Ramat Yochanan. In other words, we can say that more than we preserve the tradition of the ceremony of the Omer harvest, our festivals and ceremonies preserve us as a community rich with spiritual, cultural assets, a thriving and growing community. Whether intentionally or not, the festivals serve as an excellent glue for the community. They provide us with the elation that we need as an intimate community that examines itself in the mirror continuously, overlooking no wrinkle or blemish. Beyond the captivating melodies and dances, our festivals are characterized by the entire kibbutz being involved in them, directly or indirectly. Okay, we have a small movie. What? Yes.
Yeah.
An example of one of the holidays.
בסוכות תרצ"ב עלו ראשוני הרמה ונטו אוהלים בעמק זבולון. שנים עברו, האוהל היה לבית, השתילים נעשו אילנות, והמעט הפך לשפע. יעלו ויבואו בעומר, בצליל ובמחול, כל ענפי הקיבוץ העמלים בימי החול.
שלוש פנים לו לחג, ישיבה בסוכה, חדוות האסיף ושמחת בית השואבה.
על שמחת בית השואבה נאמר, מי שלא ראה שמחת בית השואבה, לא ראה שמחה מימיו. משיב הרוח ומוריד הגשם, לברכה ולא לקללה, לחיים ולא למוות, לשובע ולא לרזון.
Okay, that was an example. We'll see now what are the united elements in the community from the literature. In the 1980s, the communitarian approach was conceived concerning the quality of relationships between individuals and characterized, among other things, by locality. That is a real need, expressing people's belonging to history, culture, common roots with others, along with personal and collective commitment, with an emphasis on connection between personal commitment and caring, and collective commitment to all of the problems in the community, strengthening the sense of we, renewing social relationships, and the need to invigorate community spirit are among the main goals of the proponents of this approach. Among other things, they share joint practices through which members of the group define their community and are supported by it, to the point of designing the group's formative narrative. Okay. Sorry. Okay. The formative narrative is an important mechanism to ensure community stability and has significance for maintaining community beyond the life cycle of the members. The community serves as a source of creating a shared identity and unites all of its members with a feeling of unity and solidarity beyond differences in status and employment into a kind of collective personality. This is Sarah, she's not here. Sarah Shadmi. The model of relationships that develop between the individuals shapes a currently unique system of symbols that distinguish it from its environment. The festival framework and the holidays were perceived as a social engine. The festival were not an opportunity to take a break, but served as a platform to convey messages, social, kibbutz, and national messages. They were an invitation for the community to stop, contemplate, and express its value system. The contribution of festival institutes to culture and kibbutz communities was substantial. When a kibbutz festival was developed, it created kibbutz norms, a common, but not necessarily uniform, code and style that provided a setting in which the members could be creative and personalize it to their own kibbutz. A very large corpus of kibbutz cultural works was created and preserved and still serves as a platform for cultural life in the kibbutz, mostly for celebrating holidays. It also provides a source of local identity and pride. The institutes were an engine for creation and expression for all forms of cultural activities that reinforced the kibbutz communal lifestyle. The kibbutz festivals were and remain the central axis around which community encounters occur as social glue. The base principles of festival that they created serve as the basis for festivals to this day, and some are still maintained to the letter. Their contribution to culture in Israel, a large variety of holiday culture creations and culture in general. The knowledge that numerous communities are celebrating a holiday with the same festival at the same time in the same model sought to contribute to the sense of cohesion between kibbutzim as a community of communities. However, the institutes choose to preserve elements that highlight the uniqueness of each community, so that alongside the concepts and festival models with the solid rationale of how holiday ought to be celebrated, the institutes maintained unique elements for each kibbutz. Finally, from the community aspects, it can be argued that the structure of the festival and the way it is presented to the public as developed in the festival institutes sought to generate a two-way productive interaction between the festival and the community. Through that interaction, the institutes attempted to lay the foundation for establishing feelings and behaviors that express meaningfulness, belonging, commitment, voluntarity, mission, and cohesion, and help community building. And help community, the festival as a holistic, integrated event, enable the individuals in the community to create, express, and feel all those things. Meanwhile, the kibbutz communal reality gave rise to creation, which in turn advanced the culture that united the community around it. I'm finished. As Feinstein said, she's also from Ramat Yochanan and from Kibbutz Research Haifa. The creator needs the community to carry their creation, and the community needs the creator to inspire it. I want to finish with another small movie. It's the harvest holiday in the spring. Yeah, thank you. Did some of you see me? Okay, thank you for listening. And because we speak about continuously, so on the left side is my mother, and on the right side is my daughter.
Oh. Good. Thank you very much. The afternoon session has a serious biological challenge. So I would ask everyone to stand up, please. Stretch a little bit and have some, we could dance, but it's really hard with all the stuff, you know? But we could stretch and breathe and just move our bodies a little bit because it's really hard after lunch to it is better than the session before. Okay. Right. Are we happy with going straight into the next presentation, or should we have a discussion about celebrations before we do that? I'm really asking what you guys feel like.
We can leave the discussion for later. We'll let
Okay,
Paz rest a little bit.
Is that okay for everybody? So, but don't forget the
Okay.
celebrations.
Of course we won't. And we have a connection because I think you are Orthodox. You won't admit it, but you're totally Orthodox. You're totally religious kibbutzim. So you have rituals.
Do you have a
texts are-
slideshow?
Yes, please put a
okay.
slide. You have a different text, but it's the same. And also you quote, of course, you brought a quote from Peleg, I think, the tradition that preserves us more than we preserve the tradition. Well, it's a famous phrase from the Shabbat, preserve us more than we preserve the Shabbat. So
Right. Famous.
it's more of the
Okay,
same.
we're doing.
Okay,
screen
great,
sharing.
wonderful. I just would like to have the remote control.
Ah.
I'll try to do this like that.
Yeah, you have to point. At,
To point at you. Okay, with pleasure. Okay,
it takes
you
a
get
while to
it?
Wait.
Again,
Okay.
try the other one. Maybe close it and I'll connect from here.
You can't hear me. Can anybody hear me?
Oh, now. How did it happen?
Good.
Yes, so.
Look. Oh, sure.
And I can do the share screen from myself. So you can. So I must be host for this. Maybe you touch, magic touch. Wonderful.
works.
Yeah, it
Good.
works fine.
It's like
On which one? You just, this one? Okay.
Good.
Maybe I'll try it.
Okay,
Oh, no,
it's
it's
just because it lacks a little bit of battery.
okay. So just will. Okay.
Ah, good. Okay.
So I have it here in a delay. So the kibbutz was the goal and aspiration of religious youth in Europe from the 1920s onwards. They too wished to establish kibbutzim in order to combine Torah, religious life, with labor values, and thereby realize their religious socialist ideology. Religious pioneers who immigrated from Germany in 1929 founded the first religious commune in Petah Tikva, Kvutzat Rodges. Additional communes, kvutzot of religious pioneers, were established throughout the country, and in 1937, the first religious kibbutz, Tirat Tzvi, was founded in Emek Bet Shean. On the eve of Israel's War of Independence, the religious kibbutz movement had 15 kibbutzim, 10 of which located in permanent settlement sites. Their members were a minority among the religious society in Mandat Palestine, as well as among the secular kibbutzim. There were approximately 1,700 people in 1947. In my talk, I will address the first 20 formative years of the religious kibbutzim up until the establishment of the State of Israel, and demonstrate how gender issues can offer us a glimpse into their unique character. So members of the religious kibbutz movement espoused integration of the three main areas of their lives: religion, nationalism, and socialism. They wanted to design a new and revolutionary lifestyle modeled on the secular kibbutz while preserving traditional Jewish life. This approach engendered a basic contradiction, because how do you rebel against the old traditions while at the same time keeping them? The position taken by the religious kibbutz members, the Jewish law should allow a pioneering life, provided fertile ground for the implementation of innovative ideas. However, it also created a breeding ground for the growth of unique conflicts and varied challenges, some agricultural, economic, such as the issue of milking cows on Shabbat, other social. The gender question was an especially salient one. Due to its egalitarian socialist values, the religious kibbutz viewed gender equality as one of its most fundamental principles. However, it was also deeply rooted in Jewish tradition, which is based on a separation of and distinction between the genders. Consequently, the efforts to create new gender relations posed a real challenge to the religious kibbutz. It's actually a test case for the ability of religious society to integrate orthodoxy with feminism. So in this lecture, I'll focus on the family issue, and if I'll have more time, on religious life, the areas that best express this complexity and challenges. So the women members of the religious kibbutz immigrated to Palestine from Europe in the 30s and 40s. Do it again, again, and again. There it is. I thought it, Alon, it's okay. I thought it will be easier if it, I won't do it through my computer, but I was wrong. So the religious kibbutz women members immigrated to Palestine from Europe in the 30s and the 40s. They decided to join the kibbutz for Zionist reasons. Some believed that the kibbutz would give them opportunities for personal development and that they would be able to take their place in all areas of life with equal rights. However, like in the secular kibbutzim, here too the fulfillment of the new aspirations was problematic, and the disparities between the genders became pronounced even at the stage of joining the kibbutzim. Women who joined the religious kibbutz represented only a third of all members. This numerical imbalance between men and women was not the sole source of conflict surrounding the issue of marriage in the kibbutz, in religious kibbutzim. Their arguments against the traditional family were much like those presented in all the kibbutzim that was in the continuation of the distinctly patriarchal Jewish society. The family was perceived as an institution bound by tradition that threatened the success of the revolution, as a framework that didn't allow total devotion. Wonderful. A framework, the family, a framework that didn't allow total devotion to the collective. The kibbutz economic situation didn't allow for the establishment of families, etc. However, unlike the secular kibbutzim, the religious kibbutz was also committed to the Jewish law, to the halacha. And according to it, a man upon reaching the age of 18 must marry a woman in order to procreate. Therefore, the religious kibbutz viewed marriage favorably at any time and as the only way to establish a family. But within the basic worldview, this basic worldview arose calls for change. Some members believed that it was impossible to continue to maintain the traditional family structure. To speak of tradition in family life, argued Meir Or, a member of Tirat Zvi in 41, at a time when we have shattered the tradition of economic life would be equivalent to breaking the barrel and keeping its wine. They thought that the new way of life would have to find expression in family life too. However, for other kibbutz members, there was no question that unlike the other areas of life where family life was concerned, they had nothing to learn from the secular kibbutzim. As Rudi Hertz from Kibbutz Yavne, Kvutzat Yavne, said in the 40s, there, couples live together without performing a traditional wedding ceremony. There is no stability in family life. In all other areas of life, we can learn from the secular kibbutz movement, which is older than us and much more experienced. But in this area, we must find our own path. Rudi Hertz indeed led the foundation in forging this path. He had met Ilse in Germany at the Hachshara, the agricultural training farm. Although their relationship grew stronger, they were convinced that this was not the time to marry, and they wanted to devote themselves to building the nation and not their own family. But their parents, however, protested, and a day before their immigration to Palestine, they married. When they arrived to Kvutzat Rodges in Petach Tikva in 1933, they presented the group of unmarried men and women with a fait accompli. The members of the Kvutza expressed their amazement. There are members that have been here for a year or two and have not dared to marry, and this new fellow is demanding special privileges. They came as a married couple. Indeed, until the arrival of the Hertz couple, all the members were unmarried due to the harsh living conditions, but also because of the absence of solution to the numerous problems that religious marriage presented to the kibbutz. For example, a religious wedding ceremony was inevitable for any couple wishing to live together. However, the ceremony itself raised unique questions. According to Jewish law, the wedding ring, for example, must be purchased by the groom with his own money. But in the kibbutz of those days, the members didn't have any money of their own. Who then would be responsible for purchasing the wedding ring? Or the matter of the ktubah, the contract, the wedding contract, which specifies the duties of a husband towards his wife, as well as his financial obligations towards her in case of divorce. Who should bear the responsibility for paying out the amount stipulated in the ktubah? The member of the kibbutz or the kibbutz? Does the ktubah have any significance for a couple living in a kibbutz? For the religious kibbutz, these were issues that needed to be dealt with and for which creative solution had to be found. For example, Meir and Chana Or married in Kvutzat Shachal in 1934. The father of the bride, who was a rabbi, Rabbi Zarchi, asked each of the members of the kibbutz if they agreed to purchase the ring, and they signed a document, you can see the document here, stating that each of them relinquished the amount designated for the purchase of the ring of his own free will. This is an example, and you can see down all their signature of the members. So this is an example of a creative solution aimed at adapting Jewish law to the reality of kibbutz life. The question of marriage in the religious kibbutz can provide an indication of its unique nature, both in religious society, as you can see in this picture, like the girl who holds the chuppah, and you can see it also in this picture, but also in the secular kibbutz society. Like the rest of religious society, the religious kibbutz didn't aspire to do away with marriage and continued to view it as the foundation for the creation of the family unit. They continued to believe that the religious marriage ceremony was a must, something that distinguished them from the secular kibbutzim. At the same time, like the secular kibbutzim, most of the religious kibbutzim tacitly agreed that getting married should be put off due to national needs and until the kibbutz was better established financially. Postponing marriage was unprecedented in religious society. Along with marriage, the question of having children, raising and educating them came up. Traditional Jewish society is founded on the family unit, and motherhood is the social and religious function and purpose of women in this society. However, the new lifestyle in the kibbutz challenges the traditional way of life in these issues too. This arose first of all in the context of having children. In the early years of the secular kibbutzim, procreation was deliberately restricted due to financial and security constraints. In the religious kibbutz, this was an extremely tricky issue. According to Jewish law, the commandment to procreate may not be postponed even for a limited time. The accepted halachic ruling of the period under this consideration was that until a couple had produced at least a son and a daughter, it was not permitted to use contraceptives, even temporarily. However, this position was not self-evident in the religious kibbutz, which in the 30s and 40s debated the postponement of starting a family, mainly due to security problems, the extreme climate, malaria, and economic hardship. On the one hand, some members felt that having children will present a burden to the kibbutz and exhaust the working woman, and that in light of the particularly harsh living conditions, children should be avoided for now. On the other hand, there was the position that a religious kibbutz must discuss such issues in accordance with Jewish law. Religious kibbutz was committed to Jewish law, and that consequently, having children was the main purpose of marriage. The question of having children placed the religious kibbutz at a very delicate juncture between the desire to fulfill the national mission by strengthening the kibbutz and the desire to live a full life according to Jewish law, between the harsh conditions of the time, which made it difficult to raise children, and the religious approach, which mandated having children. Unlike the secular kibbutz, which in some cases made formal decision to restrict childbirth, the religious kibbutz passed no official resolution on this subject. And nevertheless, the very fact that postponing having children was even discussed in the religious kibbutz, as well as the unwritten decision to postpone having children made in a number of religious kibbutzim, was no less than a revolutionary innovation for religious society. The religious kibbutz took a clearly negative attitude towards terminating pregnancy. Unlike a secular kibbutzim where women were sometimes compelled to terminate pregnancies when the situation was especially difficult, there are many testimonies of abortions carried out by kibbutz members, sometimes at their own initiatives, sometimes at the initiative of the kibbutz. In religious kibbutzim, no such decisions were made. This was in view of the fact that unnecessary abortions are forbidden by Jewish law. Nevertheless, due to the considerable hardship, some women in the religious kibbutz did have abortions. Ruth, the daughter of a couple who joined the religious kibbutz Tirat Tzvi in 1943, described that her parents gave birth to 5 children, more children, she said, than it was possible for them to devote themselves to, even in a kibbutz. And the abortions were not paid for by the kibbutz, which refused to do so for religious reasons. The mother, however, underwent 2 abortions funded by relatives who lived in the city. And it is not the only case that I found. She described going to Tel Aviv to have the abortions with big sunglasses and handkerchief to cover the shame of sin. It should be noted that the religious kibbutz movement was founded at a time when there were already 50 secular kibbutzim in the country which had children. They were founded after it had already been proved that full kibbutz life could be led in kibbutzim with children. Still, the question of a family in a kibbutz continued to lie at the focus of debates in the religious kibbutz, particularly in the context of the issue of collective education. The members of the religious kibbutz attributed a great deal of importance to the family, which is the most basic and fundamental unit in traditional Jewish society. However, it was clear to them that if they desired kibbutz life, they would have to reject the educational model in which they had grown up and create a new family structure. For that reason, the religious kibbutz too, amid heated arguments, adopted the model of collective education for the kibbutz children. This was the members' most striking expression of the rebellion against their parents' tradition and the realization of their new worldview. Beyond the question of the family in the kibbutz, the arguments about collective education exemplified questions that touched the role and status of women in it. On the one hand, many members of the religious kibbutz view the main role of women to be their motherhood, from both a traditional and national aspect. On the other hand, there were those in the religious kibbutz too who took the position that the emergence of women from the private expanse and their inclusion in the cycle of the general kibbutz work roster made it necessary to rethink her place in it. It is impossible to isolate oneself within the narrow confines of the family at a time when areas of general activity related to the entire kibbutz and society await both men and women members, argued a kibbutz member in 1941. Tzila, a member of Tirat Tzvi, protested the traditional gender approach when she argued in 1938, why is it so clear that the main role of the woman is motherhood? We hope to fulfill the role that nature has assigned to us, but we intend to fulfill the other roles that society, the kibbutz, and a security situation require of us too. Tzila didn't reject her traditional and natural role as a mother, but she refused to consider it her only function and wished to devote herself to nation building as well. Hers, however, was a lone voice among the women of religious kibbutz movement. For the majority, motherhood was a given and lay at the top of their priorities. The kibbutz collective education system was a source of considerable suffering for many of them who yearned for the traditional family structure. The religious kibbutz tried to mitigate collective education and allow the family unit to receive expression too, especially on Shabbat. Thus, for example, on Friday nights, children lit Shabbat candles at home with their mothers. The Shabbat afternoon meal was a family meal eaten together with the children who ate the other meals separate from the parents. Like in the secular kibbutz, the children spent every day from 4 o'clock in the afternoon on with their parents. And it was the parents who tucked the children in bed at night after reciting the traditional Shema Yisrael prayer. However, despite all these facets of traditional family life, it was obvious that by adopting collective education, the religious kibbutz movement was declaring its commitment to the new society and its revolutionary lifestyle. So, the attempt to forge a new female identity and establish new gender relations was unique, especially in the area of religious life. They tried to combine for example, they tried to combine the religious lifestyle with gender equal ideology. So, for example, there was an effort to introduce prayer service for men and women without a partition to separate them, typically found in all Orthodox synagogues. In the beginning, prayer services were held without a partition due to circumstances. In the early years, the dining room served as a synagogue, and no partition was set up to separate men and women during prayer services. Outside the religious kibbutz movement, religious circles leveled harsh criticism at this practice, as Rabbi Katriel Trosh said in 1940. This is entirely inappropriate to the spirit of our ancient customs that have been passed down from one generation to the next. Why don't they arrange a special women's section as is the custom in every normal synagogue? However, the religious kibbutz debated the issue. Members that supported shared prayer services maintained that the kibbutz ought to be consistent, and that partnership and equality in kibbutz life mandated equality in prayer services as well. If we sit together in the dining room, they said we ought to pray together too. The other view in the religious kibbutz held that although women were considered equal to men in the kibbutz, they never really practiced equality in obligations. Just as biological considerations concerning women are taken into account, considerations of Jewish law should also be taken into account where women are concerned. They admitted that they were revolutionaries in the economic areas, and also they were revolutionary in the area of studying Talmud, which was a male arena till the religious kibbutz was established, and that they gave women equal rights, but that they were not willing to be revolutionaries in the religious area where gender equality was non-existent. Women members were not obligated to pray as were men, and women were not required to pray 3 times every day as were men, and consequently, there was no room to demand mixed prayer services. Even those that supported the new approach feared full implementation of the innovation. So they wanted to preserve tradition. At the same time, there were attempts to find a form of separation that would symbolize the concept of equality between the sexes in the kibbutz, such as a lower, merely symbolic partition. If you visited the synagogues in religious kibbutzim, you could see that the partition is very low, and they're trying to separate the whole room to equal parts. So in many other areas, this issue was also characterized by silence on the part of the women members. Ultimately, when the permanent synagogue were built in the religious kibbutzim in late 40s, the prayer services in them were held in accordance with the traditional Orthodox practice. The new women's identity was especially striking in the external appearances of the women in the religious kibbutz. Clothing expresses the particular society to which an individual belongs and represent them outwardly. Visitors to the religious kibbutzim noted the similarities between them and the secular kibbutzim in terms of clothing too. Their imitation of the secular kibbutzim, the physical labor and weather conditions in Bet Shean Valley, for example, led the women and girls to wear work trousers and even shorts. They had become a symbol of the pioneers, and wearing them was how the women members expressed their rebellion. Protests against the wearing of shorts were heard from many, both inside and outside the kibbutz. Rabbis protested the lack of modesty. Even members of the religious kibbutz maintained that clothing that was contrary to the approach of the religious world should not be worn. The protests stemmed from the issue of modesty, but also because of the adoption of the pioneering model, which, thanks to the anti-religious nature of the secular kibbutzim, had come to symbolize rebellion and rejection of religious values. By way of proof, they described the wives of farmers throughout the world who did hard labor, but nevertheless did not prance about in shorts. The innovative aspect of this issue was expressed in the way the women members reacted. They claimed that just as tradition should be adapted to the new reality that the kibbutz created, thus the clothing should also be adapted to this reality. They even argued that the requirement of modesty should not be imposed on them alone, but also on the men. Why the men are wearing shorts? The women noted that the new women's identity should be taken into consideration. This called for a new dress code too. The women members of the religious kibbutz saw no contradiction between the religious consciousness and clothing that enabled them to live as pioneers. But there were members who claimed that the Jewish law was above social changes. The women behaved as they saw fit. and the religious kibbutz was unable to enforce its decisions in this area. Closing was practically the only aspect in which the women members were able to demonstrate their independence and to express themselves and their new identity without words, even if it was opposed to the official position of the kibbutz. They didn't talk, but they were what they found themselves suit. Arguments were also held in the religious kibbutz in view of the new reality of life created by the proximity between the genders to an extent not seen before in traditional Judaism, such as mixed dancing of men and women, and even mixed bathing in the swimming pools and springs. The rabbis viewed it as a source of negative influence and a phenomenon that should be eradicated, but the religious kibbutz members related to this issue. It is very problematic from the point of view of the Jewish law, from the halakha, but they saw it as a socially valuable activity and believed that its social aspects should also be debated. Since I'm short in time, to the conclusion. I just say that in this issue, the reality dictated the practice and the new approaches were the ones that won the day. So to conclude, for the religious women, the kibbutz model was a fait accompli. They were willing to give up their own personal aspirations in terms of family and work for the sake of the kibbutz existential needs. Well, the children were taken from them to the children's houses, but they were part of the pioneering work because they still continued to cook and to make the laundry. So they were very frustrated. In this respect, they were perhaps no different from many women in the secular kibbutzim. However, the difference lay in the perception of the essence of gender equality and the absence of any women's struggle to implement it. For the religious women, gender equality was not the top priority. For them, the essence of the kibbutz was its national purpose. And while equality and sharing gave it added content, they were not its most important aspects in their point of view. The revolution carried out by religious women was expressed in their rebellion against the aspirations of the parents regarding the future. And in their joining the kibbutz, the most quintessential symbol of Zionism, they viewed their contribution to the revolution to lie in the work required of them, even if traditional roles were involved. The role in the revolution was and remained that of the helpmate, thereby leaving the traditional female model largely unchanged, despite certain specific changes that were introduced in some areas. The religious kibbutz movement declared its support for the full participation of women in all areas of public life and in shaping the face of the kibbutz. However, in reality, the women worked mainly in the kibbutz kitchen and children's houses and were not active in public expense. They didn't hold key positions and didn't serve as active movers in forging the image of the kibbutz. They refrained from involvement in ideological debates about the family, work, or religious life. The dominant discourse on the significant aspects of was male. Only rarely did the men protest this. Most of the men appear to have wanted to preserve women's traditional place, but also to bring about her greater involvement in shaping the face of the revolutionary settlement movement, an aspiration that was very difficult to put into effect. The solution to the built-in conflict in the religious kibbutz movement that sought revolution and innovation together with tradition lay in the gender definition. The new approaches were mostly realized by the men, whereas women mostly preserved the traditional approach in its implementation. The women, as noted, didn't challenge or protest this status. Despite the equal rights granted to women by virtue of the kibbutz formal equality, they remained inactive in the life of the kibbutz and didn't fully exercise their talents and power. At the same time, the traditional gender formula of kol kvoda bat melech pnima, yes, that women should remain behind the scenes, no longer applied because of the new lifestyle and the fact that women now had new opportunities. Only in later years would women take advantage of the window of opportunity that had opened up in the religious kibbutz. So last sentence, long sentence, but one sentence. However, unlike the secular kibbutz, the religious kibbutz movement didn't achieve the status of an elite in religious society. and was unable to impart its innovations to the rest of religious society. Nevertheless, the religious kibbutz can be viewed as a vanguard that launched the gender revolution in religious society in conceptual philosophical terms, because it created an infrastructure for gender change by means of new ideas. The current involvement of women members of the religious kibbutz movement in the religious feminist movements is the direct result of those debates held in the religious kibbutz and its efforts to forge new gender relations at the beginning. Thank you.
I think the time has come also to stand up and breathe a little bit. Is that okay? And then we can have a little discussion to finish the session. Because I feel also
You can
the need-
close it. Thank you.
Thank you. It was great. Okay, so let's do a lot of stretching, a lot of moving, and a lot of breathing. It's, actually, this one advantage with this room is that there is a lot of air in here, which is really good. Okay, so we have a discussion. I see we have 6 participants. If you will keep an eye on them. You will keep an eye on that. Thank you. So just to kind of start this discussion going, I see that the big thing that these presentations have in common is change in community. To find the way of celebrating, to create that change from the culture that was before. And here we've heard about how you change the culture relating to women's role in that culture and the change. And we have such a lot we could learn from that, actually, because especially in the eco-village movement, it's networking with cultures that are very different. And to see how change is implemented with the role of the gender roles is actually a valuable contribution to that. And I just want to say a thing about celebration. I teach a permaculture and eco-village design. And one of the models that we use is this thing about celebration. That, you know, you have all these serious discussions and you have to have different committees for different things, but you must also have celebration. And a community that doesn't celebrate doesn't have a soul. I think you said exactly that, actually. So that's a really big contribution. So questions or comments? And okay. Yes, please. A question
I
for
wondered
Paz.
because
Good.
I saw the beautiful movies and how the use of Ramat Yochanan agreed to dance Rikudei Am. I mean, the young generations, how come they participate in these festivities that seems like were taken from the 40s, for example? It's more of the same. I mean, it didn't change a lot. Maybe the technological perhaps developed, but this is the same dancing and singing and quoting from the Bible. And okay.
Before the last, before Pesach, before the last harvest holiday, I wrote in the kibbutz, the kibbutz newspaper, how come, יש לי פה. שומעים אותי, כן.
כן, כן, כן.
How come that our festivals are finding themselves in the Instagram and all the youth put it in the Instagram? How come that in 1922 it's take place in Instagram? So it's unbelievable. And it's about, and they say it, I just made a new research, and I asked them, why do you dance? And it's about being connected. It's about, they feel, and they say that we have a great tradition, and they have the responsibility to continue it
And to be part of
move
it. Mm.
other generation. And they are 20, 18, 16,
Unbelievable.
and they
yeah.
talk about the responsibility to pass it over to the next generation.
Mm.
So it's unbelievable. When we started in the first rehearsal, last holiday, 2022, and one mother came with her daughter. She was 8 years old, and she came to me and she told me, "Do you know, Paz, why I'm coming to the rehearsal of my mom?" I told her, "Why?" And she said, "Because for when I will be a dancer, adult and a dancer, I would not have to learn the dances.
She will
I
know it.
know it already."
Wow.
Great.
So
I think you can complement the education in Ramat Yochanan.
they grow
okay.
to it, and each age has his responsibility and his duty, and they like it, they
Wow.
want it.
Really impressive.
Thank you. Alon, you had a,
both. When I try to analyze what the common two interests and
you have to have a, oh, you have to speak right into it there.
closer. Do you hear me? It's okay, yes? 1, 2, 3, it's okay? It's the tense between tradition and innovation. What you preserve and what you change. What's the difference? In Ramat Yochanan, in all the kibbutzim, and it's important to say, all of us, I think, we are search and make a survey, but also we are investigate our life. And
Yes.
I don't know if you know, Paz not just wrote about it. She is the main, now in Ramat Yochanan, the main responsibility of all the holidays and the choreography and everything. So from an academic point of view, it's good and bad because you search and try to do research about yourself. But I think it's fascinating and good. But in the kibbutzim, the secular kibbutzim, it's how to preserve new tradition. Because Matityahu Shelem and Ben Gurion and all of them, and what you try to do in Ramat Yochanan is to preserve a new tradition. In your case, and your religious movement, what do you think about the tense between three main values? Try to be like a Christian, a Shilush HaKadosh, between nationality, religion, and society.
Yeah.
And I have two questions. One is the Lilach.
Yes.
That speak about the situation of women. Did she wrote it in a diary or in a something special, or it was in an assembly, a sefer? Is it just for herself, or it was a discussion with people?
Okay.
And the second question for you, if you investigate the 30, 40 beginning of the, but are you familiar with it? And we take the three core values, nationality, the religion, and the socialism. I see that the religion orthodox became more and more the main value, and you talked about the influence of the feminist religion movement, but now you see in most of all religion theories, and also in the kibbutzim, more separate, I think, and more, you can't see now, for example, Bnei Akiva movement, people that dance together.
No.
And how you explain that the religion, the Orthodox point of view, kind of, how do you say, it's high, make more importance to the people in the kibbutz, living kibbutz, than the socialism or all this revolutionary.
Okay. So,
Okay.
do you want to
question.
comment?
Okay, so I can say that Matityahu Shelem and Daryeh Ben Gurion talked about and wrote about the tension between preserve a tradition and renew a tradition. And they say that you always have to preserve the tradition and always have the surprising factor in the holiday. So every time you have to keep the tradition, but in every holiday you have to combine something new that the audience will connect to what he already know and will wait for something that will make him exciting. Or so they wrote about that combination, that it is very important. That's why I said that they gave us the principles, but they also gave the gap to each kibbutz to put what it relevant to itself and to put other things inside. So they wrote a lot about it.
Thank you.
We try to implement it in the holiday.
Yeah.
I think preserving tradition is the same among secular people and among religious people, the same practices.
They're all
Okay.
tradition.
Yes.
They're all,
To preserve
religious.
something, yes, you need to do the practice. So the first question you asked is easy because Tzila didn't speak in the assembly, but she wrote in there was a newspaper of Tirat Zvi, Batira, and she wrote point of view there with her name, with her real name. And all the debates were not just at the assembly, but also in this Alon, this paper of the kibbutz. And I found it like a treasure, yes. And she left the kibbutz after a couple of years because she couldn't accept that in kibbutz, they put her in the kitchen. So she moved to Moshav, and there she worked in agriculture. And the kitchen, yes. And
the laundry.
And of course.
Okay.
Well, now for the second question, wow. I need a couple of days to answer it. But Rabbi Landoy created a phrase in the 20s. It was called the Holy Rebellion, Hamered HaKadosh. The religious Zionists should rebel, but also the rebellion is holy. And to keep the tradition and the holiness. But actually, in practice, in reality, you cannot do both. You cannot rebel and not rebel. So this is I think the huge struggle of religious Zionism and religious kibbutzim is to combine the two worlds. And actually, we must admit it's impossible. Now, the religious kibbutzim were accused for many, many years that in the Shilush HaKadosh, nationalism, socialism, and religion, the religion was the lowest of value. And because of that, the young generation became secular. For generations, from the beginning till the 80s, there was a big accusation against the religious kibbutzim. You are not religious enough. That's why the young generation is secular. But from the 80s, it became clear that also the young generation of religious Zionism as a whole is הופך להיות דתל"ש, דתי לשעבר, become secular. And there is the מטוטלת that someone mentioned earlier this day, because you can't combine the rebellion with the holiness. So you must choose. So half of the young generation choose to be secular, and half choose to be more Orthodox. So, and you can find it in the kibbutzim, and you can find it in the cities, and everywhere the same process. That's why we see in the kibbutzim secular people alongside very Orthodox. And actually, I think that perhaps it's you can see it in the kibbutz movement as a whole. If you are a more ideological person, then you are fight for your ideas more. And the more Orthodox, the more the people who we are calling today Hardalim, Hardi Leumi, they are so ideological people, and they fight for the values. And the other, yes, the traditional people or the secular, okay, never mind. Okay, never mind. So, so we can feel them more. But in reality, you see the same. The two parts are the same in size.
Okay, I just want to cut in. I've actually made a bad mistake, and I thought we should finish at 5:30. Officially, according to the writings that we have had handed down for us on high, we can actually go on till 6. And we do have a
okay. We can start from the beginning.
We have a question from Sylvia, who is joining us from, I think, France, if I'm correct.
From France. Hi, Sylvia.
So it's wonderful to bring in people from all over the world here. And I'm going to read out the question.
We can hear her.
Maybe we can hear Sylvia. She can speak.
She can speak.
Yes, I can do that. I just wanted to make it really easy for you and to not take too much time. Yes, you were talking about gender questions very strongly, and I was wondering if gender issues are larger today, and I was wondering how kibbutz deal with that questions that challenge religion and traditions as well. So what about transgendering? Well, this is
about transgender? Yes,
transgender or yeah, you know, people
there is
looking for the gender, people who are fluid gender, and all those questions, I mean.
Yes, well, this was not an issue in the period under my discussion. But like Alon said about Paz, I'm researching the society that I'm part of. So I know for my own eyes that are a huge development in this area also, and more acceptance than before of transgenders and many aspects of this population.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yes, in the kibbutzim, but also in the cities. And but again, when people are opening their minds to development, social development, there are groups that are segregate themselves more. So this is the process we are seeing here. There are sectors in the religious Zionism that open-minded and people that are segregate themselves.
Okay. Okay, I was just wondering how it's working now in the kibbutz, because I've been recently in California, up north of San Francisco, and there is a kind of experience, I don't know, you probably know about it, Wilderness Torah. And this is, actually, this is not a built community, but they're starting to build a community with new rituals about the Jew tradition, and they are very, very, very inclusive, and specifically about gender questions. So this is something going on, I guess, based on Jew religion and Jew traditions, but they really open widely the purpose. And also because this is California, maybe they have this.
Yes, this is California, first of all.
Yeah, it is, but it's really questioning the because they are, when you see the photos and their Instagram and so on, it seems it's like a temporary kibbutz. You know, they have different manifestations, and sometimes they are like a pop kibbutz, and then it stopped, and then they come again, and they are doing a lot of events. So just it made me think.
We are in the middle of revolution of social changes, and who knows what will.
I guess. No, but I thought that maybe you had some witnesses about that, and because you are working on those social questions, it can.
I'm not familiar with it, but I know that there is a huge debate.
Okay.
Around these issues.
Yeah, yes. Interesting. Thank you so much.
Okay. I think we will be rounding off with that unless somebody is burning with something they have to bring up.
We have time in 6 or no?
We have, but there is a biological time also about, it's called tiredness.
No, only in the kibbutz, defaulted.
We also have a tool built into this conference where these discussions can carry on, and it's the coffee bar and the dining tables and the small sitting places around in the Ordonikon, where I think this discussion will carry on, and in fact it's a never-ending discussion. So I want to say thank you to everybody for coming here.
Thank you so much,
to Paz and to Lilach. Thank you to Sylvia for joining us from France and making this an international event. And big thanks to our technical setup, which my experience is getting easier with each session, which is great.
The last session will be perfect.
The last session will be perfect. Okay, so
Thank you.
Okay. Bye to Sylvia.
Bye. Manu.